Hey, sweet friends, welcome to Lavender and Lace. I'm Alicia, and I have several projects for you today in the video. I've been wanting to do several of these for quite a while, and I'm just getting around to them, trying to get some just normal home decor pieces done before I start my fall crafting. And if you like the farmhouse vibe, thrift flips, dupes, and just creating things in general, I hope you consider subscribing to this channel. And let's get started with today's projects. I love to look in the clearance section at Hobby Lobby, especially after Christmas. They seem to have a better selection, at least at my store anyway. And I picked up this sign for, I believe it was 90% off. So I got this very cheap, and it has been in my closet for a while. So I knew I wanted to do something for this to go in my dining room. And I just started by giving this 2 coats of the Waverly chalk paint in the color moss. I chose one of my small flat head brushes just to go around the edges of the sign instead of using washi tape, but feel free to tape these off if you want to get a good clean edge. I chose one of my chalk couture transfers, and this one is the chicken wire design, and I just fuzzed that really well before I put it down on the sign. I love to use these transfers, and you're able to get several uses out of these before you have to throw them out. And this chicken wire design came in a 4-pack, and I believe it was called the Farmhouse pack. I've had it for quite a while, and I was introduced to chalk couture about 5 years ago now, I guess, and I loved it the first time I tried it. And I just add some pieces occasionally to my collection. They can be pretty pricey, so I try to buy them either on sale or ask my hubby to get them for me for Christmas. They're super easy to use. Like I said, I fuzz the design before I put it down. You just take a small amount of the chalk paste, go over your design completely, and remove any of the excess. And I just repeated that all across the length of my sign. I applied a light coat of Mod Podge just before I put down my vinyl design. This just protects your paint and my chalk couture transfers from pulling up any when I remove that transfer tape. I think this cut file came from Creative Fabrica. I will see if I can find the link and leave that for you guys in the description box if you would like to use it. And I do have a subscription to that site, so I use it quite a bit. I just love all of the choices that they have for cut files and different graphics, even different kinds of paper that you can get. And I just weeded out my design and put it down on the sign. I wanted to try using the wax paper on the back of my transfer tape just to see if that would help me be able to center this better before I stuck it down. And I don't know, but I had some issues using the wax paper. Um, I don't know if I just didn't get it lined up right, or I don't know. I might give it another try with another project, but some of it stuck underneath the vinyl, and I just had to go in and remove some of those smaller pieces, and it was kind of a headache. But I did like the way that it helped me line everything up first. And if you noticed, I did cut this in 2 different sections because my sign was bigger than my mat. So I just sized that to fit on 2 separate mats and cut it out like that. After I peeled back the wax paper, I just used one of my burnishing tools to apply the vinyl to the sign. I carefully pulled back my transfer paper from the first section of vinyl that I applied, and I did have just a couple of pieces that wanted to pull up as I was going along, and I just put that back down and rubbed over that with my finger, and it stuck well. And I do like to keep my transfer paper as close to the surface as possible and just wiggle that back and forth, and you can see how I'm doing that here. I repeated those steps for my remaining vinyl, and the second half of my O didn't want to stick, but I just took my fingernail and kind of held that down as I pulled up the transfer paper. And once I got everything the way I wanted it, this sign was ready to be displayed. For this project, I took 2 stove eye covers that came in a pack from Dollar Tree and some different sizes of half wooden beads, and I got those from Amazon. And I just took some hot glue and glued those all around the edges of both of my stove eye covers, and I just used that red border kind of as a guide. And I took these outside and used some white spray paint and gave those 2 really good coats, and I had to do a little bit of touch up in a few areas to get complete coverage. And then for my smaller stove eye cover, I just wanted to use some of this contact paper or magic cover that I got from the Dollar Tree. I just love the pattern that this one had, and I just traced around the edge of my stove eye cover to get the general size that I needed. I knew it was going to be a little bit bigger than the area that I actually wanted to cover, and I just cut that out, and then I just placed that back down on my stove eye cover, and I just kind of pushed that in around the beads and got just a line that I could go by to cut that out so it would fit in the area that I wanted it to. Just trim that down once again, and that was ready to go on the top of my stove eye cover. And this one I think was the 8-inch size, and the other one was a 10-inch size. It's just very easy to apply this contact paper to any project that you're working with, and I kind of like to fold it up sort of like a burrito and put it in the middle of my project, and that just helps to get it down easier and with no wrinkles or bubbles. And I had some of this cotton cording in my stash, and I wanted to put that down in between the beads and the contact paper because I did have a gap there and I didn't want that to be showing. So I just went around with some hot glue and put that down. And if I did this project again, I would do that after I do the distressing. I did get a little bit of the antique wax on that cording, but not a whole lot to where it made much of a difference. But I just took some of the antique wax from Waverly and just went around on all of the beads and the edges to distress this piece. And I also took some of that antique wax and just went over this cutout. Just gave that one good coat and removed the excess with a paper towel. And I knew that this cutout would not lay flush on my stove eye cover, so I took 3 more of those half wooden beads and just glued them on the back of my cutout, and this helped it to have kind of a 3D look on the sign. And I just glued that to the surface with some hot glue. I'm loving how this sign is looking so far. I think it's going to look great in my dining room. And I had some of these little mini bamboo wooden spoons that I had picked up from Hobby Lobby. They were in the fall section, so I got those for 40% off, and I thought those were the perfect finishing touch for that stove eye cover. And for my second one, I just started by applying a light coat of Mod Podge to the top, and I just measured the surface that I wanted to cover. And I am using the tissue paper technique that I like so well. I just cut out some tissue paper and just tape that down to a piece of printer paper. And once again, be sure that you print on the matte side of your tissue paper. There are two sides. You'll have a shiny side and a matte side, so always print on that matte side. And I do like to let my printouts dry for at least 30 minutes, maybe longer if I have the time. That just allows your ink to dry and it won't smudge when you're putting it down on your project. And then I just cut out whatever design that I have chosen for my project. And this tissue paper, I intentionally chose one that was a little wrinkled. I thought that would give this wall decor piece just a little bit more character and a vintage look. And after your Mod Podge dries, you can go in with either, I like to use my Cricut mini press for this. And be sure you use a protective covering. I have a Teflon sheet that I use for all of these projects. I just start from the center of my image and just work my way out until everything is well adhered to that, and that just reactivates your Mod Podge and you don't have any wrinkles or bubbles. And this is just my favorite technique and one of the best ways that I have found to get artwork on a wall decor piece like this. And for this one, I also just went around with some of that antique wax and distressed the edges. I also went over some areas of the design with that antique wax just to help that blend in a little bit better with the edges. And I took some more Mod Podge and just did a light coat over the surface that just protects my artwork and just helps that to stay nice and neat and not to have any damage done to it. And I looked in my greenery picks that I had on hand just to see what I wanted to use to cover up that gap that had been left at the top of this one with the beads. And I always have some boxwood that I keep in my stash. I like to pick this up from Walmart, and it's just nice to add to a lot of different projects. And I also had some lamb's ear, and I just thought the lamb's ear was a little bit too big for this particular piece. So I just pulled off some smaller pieces of my boxwood and just used some hot glue to glue those down. And I also made just some simple shoelace bows with some lace ribbon and some jute twine that I had in my stash. And I just put everything down with that hot glue, just trimmed up my ribbon, and this stove eye cover is ready to go up with the other one. I saw these milk bottle candles at Cracker Barrel and absolutely love them, but I was not going to pay $23 for one candle, so I decided I would try to recreate them using some of the Starbucks Frappuccino glass bottles, and I picked up some wicks from Amazon. I will link those below for you guys if you want to check them out. Just took some hot glue and glued that to the bottom of my glass bottle, and started by melting some Dollar Tree candles. I like to add the candle to the pot before the water comes to a boil. I just think that might help prevent your glass from cracking. And these candles did take 2 of the Dollar Tree candles to completely fill up my milk bottle. And I just added that using a funnel to help me get it into my container. And I just let that set up for a couple of hours. And I used some pencils to keep my wick in the center of the wax. And I recently discovered that Canva has some candle label templates that you can use. And I just scrolled through and searched for one that I thought would be a good fit for my milk bottle candle. They have a lot of really good choices that you can choose from. And I just picked out a design and personalized that for my project. And I downloaded that to my laptop and just put that into my Cricut design space as a print then cut. And I just cut that out using my Cricut Maker. And this design, it did not cut it out in a circle the way that I wanted it to. It cut it out as a square. So I just grabbed some scissors and went around the outside of that design and just trimmed it up and just peeled off the backing and attached that to my faux milk bottle. And I just love the way that this project turned out. It was super simple and easy to do. The only thing that I would change is the background color on my label. It just blends in with that candle color. And I am planning on making several of these as Christmas gifts. And I will probably actually buy the scented candles from Walmart for that. And you can also just spray paint the cap for your candle, and these are ready to go. I had this Dollar Tree sign in my wood blank stash, and it was cute as is, but I, of course, wanted to change it up and make it match my decor just a little bit better. So I started by removing the twine that they had, and I also removed the little metal house from the front and just used my Cricut scraper to get up any of that glue that was left on the sign. And I started by giving this 2 good coats of the Waverly chalk paint in the color Mineral. And if you make signs like this, you could always start by doing the back of the sign and just covering up the front with some craft paper. But I just opted to start with the front of this sign so I wouldn't have that extra step of covering it with that craft paper. And I also had some of these wooden hearts that came from the Dollar Tree in my stash. I picked these up around Valentine's Day, and these will be great for any other projects that you might want to do. And I used 4 of these, and I used different colors of chalk paint. I did a green, a blue, a pink, and a white, and those just represent the members of my family. And I also picked up some of these wooden laser cutout ornaments. These also came from the Dollar Tree, and I gave each of these a good coat of my Waverly antique wax. Just put that down and removed the excess with a paper towel. And I also used that same antique wax for my wooden word cutout. Just did the same thing there, just went over that with 1 good coat and removed any of the excess with a paper towel. And once that was dry, I went back in with some of the Snow White Waverly chalk paint and just did some distressing around the edges of both my family and the heart cutouts. This just gives it a little bit more of that farmhouse vibe that I like for my projects. And I went back on the bigger hearts and took some of the antique wax and just did the distressing lightly around the edges, and that just made some of these cutout areas pop a little bit better and gave that more definition. And once again, I am using a Chalk Couture silk screen transfer. This is the chicken wire design again. And as the same as in my previous project, you just fuzz that design before you put it down on your piece that you're chalking. And this is the bright white chalk paste, and I just used my squeegee and tried to work as quickly as possible so that paste wouldn't dry on my transfer, and just repeated the steps all the way down my sign. And I glued the laser cut ornaments to the top of each of the hearts. And I laid everything down on my sign just to do a dry fit, and just took a pencil and made some lines where everything was and the way I had it laid out, so I would be able to get that back the way I wanted it to and everything lined up. And I just took some hot glue and glued each of my hearts and my word cutout down to the sign. And I had these little antique vintage looking pins that I had picked up from Hobby Lobby, and I wanted to embellish the hearts a little bit, and that also covered up the hole in the ornaments. So I just took a hammer and covered those pins with a paper towel to protect the surface, and just put those in the top of each of the hearts. And I also just took my heat gun and just removed any of the spider web strings left over from the hot glue, and finished this sign up with just reattaching some jute twine as a hanger. And this is perfect in my dining room and represents my family, and it's such a cute project and would make a great gift for Mother's Day, Christmas, birthdays, anything like that. And I hope you guys like this project. This next project is super quick and easy. All you need is a wood blank and some of this peel and stick wallpaper from the Dollar Tree. And I found a couple of different signs at Hobby Lobby in the clearance section, and I only paid a couple of dollars for each one. And I just traced out what size I needed of the peel and stick wallpaper, and I just cut that out, and I made sure that I left on the protective backing while I was cutting this out. And when you cut out this peel and stick wallpaper, it will come apart into two separate sections, so you will need to reattach that. And I just used some hot glue to do that with mine. And it tells you which way to peel off that plastic covering on the back. And then all you have to do is attach that to your sign. Just press that down well with your hands, and this does stick pretty well. I did have a couple of areas that I needed to go back in with some hot glue. Just made sure those were stuck down well. And then I took some chalk paint in the color Truffle, and I did a couple of these signs this day, and I did one with black and one with the truffle, and I liked the way that the truffle came out better. And you'll let me know in the comments which one that you think looks best. I'll show you both of those here in just a bit. And I just did one coat of that, and some of the tin color did still kind of show through that truffle paint, which I was okay with. Then I just went back in with one of my chip brushes and some of the plaster colored Waverly chalk paint, and just did some distressing on the top and around the edges, and that is all you have to do for this project. I think these will look great as shelf sitters or just in the background for any of your vignettes that you might want to have. Let me know what you guys think. That wraps up another round of Farmhouse DIYs. I hope you guys enjoyed today's projects. I would love to know which one is your favorite and which one you might decide to try for yourself to add to your home decor. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and click that notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. And if you did like today's video and you know someone else that might enjoy it, please share. I will see you guys in the next one.